Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Justin from GameStar Exchange. GameStar is basically a P2P network for gift card exchange, and it's making waves in the NFT space. They're live with their testnet, and their mainnet goes live within the next 30 days. This was a super interesting conversation because we touched upon certain trends in this space and what Justin really feels very strongly about. So I really can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Justin. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us today. How are you doing?
How's it going, Tarusha? Hopefully I'm saying your name well. I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us. Can you tell us a little about your background and how you got into crypto?
Yeah, it's definitely got to be through media.
Okay.
Just multimedia, digital media. There's just so much to get into. Just being of the generation that I am, naturally, just being born and raised, essentially in the web. Well, pre-Web 1, but
Yeah.
essentially getting into that and not just doing, simple things took a long time sometimes, and it was quite linear, but
Yeah.
it was a good experience though. I think it really taught us a bridge to more digital virtual experiences. So it's just a natural progression, I suppose. But I suppose what got me into things as intensely as they are now may have just been the application of NFTs.
Okay. So, what is your background? You mentioned that, you've been witnessing Web 1 and Web 2, and obviously that kind of really taught us where is the gap. And that is why, we're all in this space in Web 3. But essentially, so you were always working in tech?
I mean, I've always been into technology. I used to definitely take things apart in my home. So engineering, perhaps in some ways. Yeah, I would
Right.
take apart the fan, the toaster. I would take apart stereos, just
Wow.
things,
Your
video
parents
game
must not be big
consoles.
fans of you, right?
I know I put them back together quite well,
All right, good.
right? So I
Then-
didn't. I made sure that I would be safe. I played safe. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, there were a few things I couldn't actually unlock because I didn't have the right tools at the time. But it was always fun to me to explore that type of stuff. And really, the background, I suppose, as it applies, would be more specifically sound design,
Okay.
things like that,
Mm-hmm.
music production.
Wow. Okay.
So the
That's
idea
very
to have, yeah, so having an avenue, having an outlet, a new outlet, it's just a new tool, right? It's just a new tool.
Yeah, that's true. That's a lovely way of putting it. So, you said that you kind of got into the space in a bigger fashion when you stumbled upon NFTs. So, could you tell us a little about what you're building currently?
Yeah, so we're building an NFT marketplace absolutely for metaverse items, game. There are a lot of things happening. I would definitely say probably check some of the links that are going to be supported with this release. But essentially, there's a market of gift card traders in the world, right? So gift card trading it's a large market. So the platform is largely focused on gift cards and game items, right? So people want to trade their game items,
Okay.
centralized games, traditional games, and decentralized game items, right? So
Okay.
digital assets,
Mhm.
right? There are various games that people play on their PCs and
So,
mobile phones
can you
perhaps, and they
can you
want to
go
sell
on
those.
GameStar and perhaps, like, I don't know, trade like your Pokemon cards or something like that? Is that possible?
Virtual items, yes.
Okay.
Physical items, perhaps if the community really wants it, we could figure something out.
Because you mentioned traditional games, right? And I am a 90s kid, so I'm just thinking in terms of cards and the collectibles that we used to have. So is that
Right.
like perhaps on the roadmap that you'd
Yeah,
want? Yeah.
I wanted to go back to that as well, actually, because the idea that NFTs can only represent digital items, perhaps on the blockchain, it's not entirely um, correct in a sense,
Yeah.
because you could definitely have an NFT that's attached to a physical item, right? It could be a shirt. I've seen it. It could be a home. We've seen it. It's any physical item. So yeah, if people want to create an NFT that represents the tokenization or certificate of ownership of a physical item, then absolutely go for it. Take one of the
Yeah.
books in your collection,
Mm,
take a t-shirt that you got from a Michael Jackson concert,
right.
and it's up to you. It's up to you guys to do. So yes, absolutely, that could be traded on our platform as long as people it's up to the people to make the NFT. We'll facilitate it. So we don't. It's a trustless platform. It's a permissionless platform. There's no, you can freely use the platform. We don't need any identification of any sort. It's a
Okay.
crypto, so yeah.
Well, that's like really interesting. So basically, if I want to perhaps create an NFT today on, say, my, I don't know, wrestling cards or like the collectibles that I have, so I can easily do that. Like I can just go on your platform, sign up, and sell it.
Well, essentially, as we've launched so far, we've definitely gone full force, full steam into gift card trading and game
Okay.
items. Okay.
Right.
So the platform is just about to go live. It's actually live right now on testnet. So
Wow.
people have been trading for, I don't, let's just say a month or so, and, working out any type of bugs. And essentially, mainnet is going to be launching quite soon, within the
Wow.
month, as a matter of fact. More, based on the date, yeah, essentially within the month is our plan. So people, all across the world are going to be able to trade, or I mean, are currently trading gift cards, and all across the world. It's an interesting thing.
This is actually really cool. I never really thought that, the space, this, because this is essentially a niche, right, that you're targeting. I never thought that, this is like big enough market, like in terms of, gift cards being exchanged. But this is really interesting that you guys have this and, you're kind of scaling it. This must be crunch time for you considering, you're saying the testnet is live and the mainnet goes live in a month time.
Well, we're just working. Everybody's picking up anything that's left on the ground, just all working together.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, but for right now, your obviously your next big milestone would be, the mainnet going live. Then what after that? Like, what is, are you exploring other niches? Because, as I mentioned, asset-backed NFTs, they've become a sort of a thing. And I'm talking about it because right now there was a movie that had launched, kind of gotten released in India, and there is a company called Social Spag. So what they essentially did was this movie was called 83, and it basically depicted, the 1983 World Cup win of India, which is of cricket, and they had kind of their own NFTs, which were backed by cricket paraphernalia. So is that something that you're looking to do?
Cricket paraphernalia, is that what you said? Okay, that's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah, I definitely, been watching some cricket-based cryptos, last year, 2021 and such. A couple of them caught my eye, so I definitely watched those. Now, I'm not sure I got your entire question. I definitely did enjoy the barking. That was nice. So,
All the fun things that come with working from home. But yeah,
absolutely.
my
So,
question.
no, I think I got you though. So, essentially, what we're planning, what's on the roadmap is, of course, to add the various trading, accepted traded items. So for now, we're launching. We've got the game items, right? And, or pardon me, the gift cards. So the gift card market is leading the way, right? Game items, so centralized game items. So we're looking at, again, if you use Steam and you play video games on Steam, for example, or other
Mm,
games, and you want to trade your gold in some of your RPGs or something like that, you could trade them on our platform for cryptos, right? Starting with BUSD
right.
and BTCB, right? So, we're
Hmm.
planning to move to Polkadot in,
Wow. That's a
yeah,
that's
that,
a great big ecosystem that you guys gonna tackle then.
well, that's right, because we ultimately we want this to be something that can be as far reaching as possible to get into the hands of the people that actually need it. So that
Hmm.
interoperability is really important.
Absolutely. So right now, do you have plans to like be on Polygon as well? Considering a lot of, the NFT bars and all these gaming platforms are coming up on Polygon. Is that on the roadmap as well?
Yeah, so we're definitely looking at this, right? Again,
Hmm.
the Polkadot idea is something that's really important to us,
Right.
and we're definitely internally speaking about, different chains and just other platforms that we could use to expand what we're doing, right? So, and then of course, continuing a little bit with the roadmap,
Hmm.
right? It's important to also know, like I said, the NFT. So that will be coming a little bit later, but
Right.
we're working on some, we're working on some new things, some new media ideas. We have, blogs out, but and we're working on essentially other ways to perhaps educate people on the market and on ways to trade and
Right.
earn, right? Get paid, find different ways to make money. Everybody's home, right? It's a virtual world. A lot of this stuff is happening. So, there's just expanding and providing more opportunities for that space, right? So metaverse, of course, is a big talk of town, and maybe I suppose in mainstream media, perhaps NFTs are the big talk of town, and NFT and the whole metaverse idea may be kind of a controlled narrative more to one side in the
Right.
mainstream media, but the blockchain is wide open. So that whole idea of giving access to people to trade peer to peer in a decentralized way, their
Yeah.
game items, right? Their digital assets, their centralized game items, their mobile phone game items, uh, you know, their gift cards, right? We're definitely looking to that. So, we're looking to get to the NFT trading soon, but I definitely would say we have some surprises coming up. I'll just say that, yeah.
You're being very mysterious, Justin. We usually get founders to like spill the beans here on my podcast, but I'm
Well,
but I'm glad, you kind of mentioned education, right? And how it's important to sort of educate the end user around trading these NFTs, and perhaps, whenever you're educating any user about any kind of value, it's kind of, there is a learning curve involved. So is that something that you guys have faced as well, that just sort of making people understand that there is like value to these NFTs? Because that is something, I get asked a lot, that with NFTs people are not sure of the value being ascribed to them. And here, because you're talking in a niche, is that a challenge that you face as well? And if you have, then how are you trying to perhaps manage to like sort of convince these people and get over this obstacle?
I see. Well, we definitely, like I mentioned, do put out blogs where there's content there. There's
Hmm.
also, we just recently started recording some other media, some podcasts, right? So we're getting into that side of things as well. Some of it happens to be educational content. And I think just by nature, speaking about technology is educational to
Right.
many,
Yeah.
right? So I think just, by virtue of us being in the space, we are educating people, right? So as long as we continue to expand our reach with our media and
Hmm.
the inclusion of various digital assets and just assets in general, we are essentially opening a way for knowledge to just continually be poured out and shared.
Okay. So do you feel like this lack of awareness around, perhaps around NFTs, or perhaps some preconceived notions like people might have, that this seems like a bubble, like which was called a bubble a few months, until a few months back. Is that somewhat of a challenge for you to get like your initial sort of clientele or initial users? Has it been a challenge?
Yeah, I would say absolutely, However, with the long-term goal, if you really
Right.
do look at it as a bubble, it doesn't have to continue to inflate until it pops, right? We can let a
Yeah.
little air out and have some rhythm with it, and you know it expands, and it has to take a break. People sell off and pay to live and do different things to enrich their lives, and then when they feel comfortable, there's so much happening in finance all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's it is a challenge in a way, but at the same time, it's, if there wasn't a challenge, then what would we be doing it for, right? It's a long-term plan. It's a long-term project. It's something that has the ability to touch and benefit so many people around the world.
Absolutely. I think, NFTs and, this entire metaverse has kind of opened up so many opportunities for all of these people who were like, if you just talk about gaming per se, you can actually get paid for just playing games on certain networks. And that in itself, I think, is amazing, because earlier these people who are like usually the gamers, they were ridiculed for spending a lot of time, online and on in this virtual environment. But slowly we are all moving into the metaverse.
Yeah, it's ultimately it's inevitable. I mean, we are here right now.
Yeah.
Just, imagine if we just, controlled a character and walked into the meeting room, and then, here we are. So it's really not that far-fetched.
Mm.
Employment in the metaverse is really not that
Yeah.
far-fetched, pardon me. It's really just, it's kind of, dare I say, obvious. At least to me, it seems that it would be an obvious thing because there's such an opportunity, and it's so apparent, and it's being marketed slowly by in the mainstream media by major companies, and it's kind of obvious. But yeah,
It's like
I
a
think there's
natural
a lot of
progression.
promise for interesting things and productive things in the space. So what I mean is it's so inclusive in the sense that everybody can use it. They can
Mm.
wash their hands in it. They can do whatever they want in it, right? You can empower in it. It's fine. It's just like, it's really just, a further extension of the web, the internet.
Yeah, I truly concur here. I think it's just a natural progression that, we are all moving towards this virtual world and this metaverse that, people keep talking about. I was asked recently who is a part of the metaverse. And, I said, if, you're looking, if your screen time is as high as usually it is for, the average Joe, then you're already in the metaverse. You're already, interacting. We are more interacting and socializing on a virtual level than like physically. And obviously COVID has kind of accelerated that.
Well, like I said, there have been a lot of opportunities lately,
Yeah.
right? So one thing that's important to me though is security, right? Really understanding how to be secure in
Mm.
Web3, right? If
Yeah.
Web3 is going to be today, and this is what we're calling it, this is how we have deemed it, this evolution here, cool. Now, people need to understand how to be secure and more secure. They need a better understanding of security than they did, in previous generations, let's say, because now, ideally and theoretically, perhaps, it is your information and you should be maintaining it, controlling it, and, in some way protecting it.
Yep, absolutely. So Web3, I think in its entirety, it gives you a lot more freedom, but obviously that freedom comes at the cost that, you have to take on more responsibility. What you mentioned, that, we need to be more responsible about our own information. It's like a part of us that is there. And, again, this goes for everything. It goes not just for the metaverse, it goes for even, the transactions that you're doing on this decentralized space. We are creating essentially a parallel economy.
Yeah, that's right.
So, what is your take on companies that have been in the Web 2 space? So, for example, like the biggest example here is Facebook. Now, it's kind of renamed itself as Meta. What is your take on these companies getting in this space? Like, do you have an opinion on this? Because some people really have very strong opinions about companies like Facebook getting in this space.
Sure, I do. I think they've been definitely working at it for some time. So
Mm.
they're definitely tech leaders without
Yeah.
question, right? So I wouldn't want to discredit them and perhaps point a finger and say that they're jumping on a bandwagon per se. However, they did make a strong step that, somebody pointed out, one of my students pointed out to me that, wow, it's funny that nobody did this. Nobody just named their company that.
Yeah.
So, but it was bold, and it's bold, it was bold.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the security idea. That is the front running, you know, that's the main concern to me. That is an example, pardon me, right, of
Yeah.
one of my main concerns is the security aspect. So, the centralization of things has worked for few people for a long time, right? So as
Hmm.
we decentralize, which is still, it's still a part of being centralized, it's right there. It's just it's less centralized, right? I think it's just a good opportunity for everybody to educate, on so much as personal independent finance, right? It's
Yeah.
such an interesting time.
It is. It's a very interesting time to be alive in this space and working in this space, more importantly, I think. But, you keep talking a lot about security. So, in terms of security and in terms of your platform, who has kind of perhaps done the auditing, or is that still in progress?
Right. So that report will be shared, still in progress as well.
Mhm.
So, one thing about security on the platform is we use the Taurus protocol, which
Okay.
essentially it allows, if somebody's going to trade, okay, so when you're trading on the platform, if you happen to want to trade a $100 gift card, you've got to first put up $100, right, to a smart
Okay.
contract. You put it there.
Yeah.
We cannot take people's funds. We cannot freeze people's funds or assets. That's one thing about the platform.
Yeah.
However, if somebody does have an issue of any sort and they do wish to have some type of arbitration, right, we do have the Taurus protocol where essentially the case would be sent to a handful of node operators, right? So people have to stake GMS tokens in order to be, to operate, to be a judge, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So that's the decentralized element there, right? And then essentially there's a window. Right now we're working with 24 hours to
Okay.
have some type of judgment be made, a decision there
Okay.
with the appeals. And based on the voting, if node operators are essentially rewarded for voting in the right direction. Now, of course, there's
Okay.
still trust. We have to build a community of trust. I think this is something that goes with all blockchains, all decentralized financial applications,
Absolutely.
right? So, and there's a DAO aspect in a way to it, I suppose, right? So
Okay.
it's just the idea that you vote,
Mm-hmm.
and if 5 node operators get it and 4 vote one way and 1 votes the other way, you're going to get a bonus in some way for voting in the right direction. So that's why the decentralization aspect is so important to this platform, right?
Yeah.
And that's only if there's an appeal, right? Otherwise,
Right.
you do have the ability to chat directly, encrypted chat between
Hmm.
you and the party, the merchant and the customer.
Right.
And so you can all sort things out. But if you're depositing money on the platform and you're
Mm-hmm.
trading that same amount, that's the only way you can trade. So if you scam somebody, you're going to lose the money that you deposited anyway. So it would kind
Right.
of be, it wouldn't really make sense to
To do that.
scam. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
That doesn't make sense. But how, you mentioned that okay, there is a bonus for people, or for the nodes that are voting in the right direction. So who decides what is right?
That is really the people. that
Okay.
is that is the node operator. So I definitely would encourage people to check it out,
Hmm.
start looking at GMS, right? The tokens there, it's available, and
Right.
consider the idea if you want to be a part of the community to make this thing sustainable and a positive experience for everybody.
Wow. Okay. So you're really, really going decentralized with this. That it's actually ultimately the onus of the people to decide in which direction to sort of take that particular appeal.
That's right.
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful. I can't really wait to test it out. I would actually love to get access to the testnet.
Yeah, it's live. If you check out our socials, essentially you could find a link that will take you directly to the testnet. So you would have to do a BSC testnet, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what so make it simple for everybody to engage with, right? It's pretty simple. So if anybody really doesn't know how to add the Binance Smart Chain to their wallet, we definitely would have a tutorial there. So just
Hmm.
check us out, perhaps on YouTube.
Okay, that's lovely. Okay, I'm gonna check this out right after the recording, and I'd love to test out what you guys have been building. It sounds really interesting. Essentially, my problem with a lot of dApps coming up, probably in the past few months, has been that because the market was doing well, I think a lot of capital was flowing. So what these guys were building, they were calling it decentralized, but there was some centralized element to certain apps, and that kind of really sort of triggers me, because if you're going to say that okay, it's decentralized, then it should be decentralized through and through. But then perhaps it should not trigger me, because the ecosystem is not that mature right now. Like, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, with us, essentially as decentralized as it can get is to just
Hmm.
give the 2 traders their space to do it.
Right.
If
Yeah.
they absolutely want our help, we'll call on however many random node operators,
Right.
right? So if there's collusion, it's so hard for there to be collusion. It's possible, I suppose, right? But
Yeah.
the more people that join the platform, is the more the more decentralized it is, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
So then obviously the chance of any kind of collusion happening would decrease, as more and more people are becoming a part of your network.
Right, because the trust in the space of peer-to-peer trading is in gift cards and game items and things like this that we're exploring. It's tough. It's not, sometimes people just don't want to use it. There are so many DeFi apps. There's so many apps to connect your wallet to. Do you want to
Exactly.
connect to all of them? Right?
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
many. So I think that whole idea of trust and the decentralization with the Torus protocol will
Hmm.
really give people a sense of confidence, really. If anything, just somebody, there's another option. If this doesn't go well with this one person, there are five or more people that have my back,
Right.
potentially, to look at the situation and give me a second chance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, very, very important. So ultimately, people give a lot of, like, they have a lot of criticism for the Web3 space, in the sense that, okay, this is too much, perhaps onus on the people themselves, as when you talk about security there. And my take has been very diametrically opposite on this. That I feel like policymakers, they tend to mollycoddle the end user, and they take away a lot of, in order to sort of facilitate the entire mollycoddling, they kind of take away a lot of your own prerogative, like of the retail user. And that we see that in with banks, etc., that they put in all kind of prerequisites, and they put in all kinds of rules as to what they're doing with your money. And that I find very aggravating. So there is obviously, there is beauty in decentralization, and that's why both of us are here. But the way you guys are kind of doing it, it's actually commendable. That as I mentioned earlier, that you're doing it in a niche space. And this is very interesting that there are there are people like you who are thinking about how to expand this niche on the decentralized space.
Yeah, I think it's great. You look at, you mentioned banks. I think that's
Yeah.
quite interesting because you look at what's happening, at least today,
Mm.
with high interest
Yeah.
lending platforms, or high interest, platforms like, let's say, Celsius
Yeah.
or BlockFi, some other ones, they're having issues, they're
Yeah.
facing
Yeah.
issues right now.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
their rates are thousands of, anyway, it's just the time, the multiple, it's incredible how much more, just as percent speaking wise, in that way, these
Mm.
platforms give compared to a bank, even a high interest, like a TFSA or something. Just, the average person might have that much, and they may be making 1%, maybe up to 2%, or maybe 3%,
Yeah.
and in the on the blockchain, you know 30% is not impossible.
Yep.
20%, 15%, even 5% is a pretty good number.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's super interesting. I just think there's a good opportunity for people to learn right now.
Mm.
Great educational opportunity to potentially change your future, right?
Yeah, I think you also pretty much sound like me when I'm talking about Web3. And I usually say that I sound like a cult leader trying to get people to join in. But I just want people to look at this opportunity and look in this space, at least give it a chance, because it's going to change the world. And we are very early right now, but more people need to be looking at it, because they're not even aware that this is another option.
Well, you know what? If you're a leader, that's good. Just leave some breadcrumbs, like, feed the people that need to be fed. I think it's important, if you're putting out quality, that's it. That's really what's important, essentially, right? If you're delivering it, if you're aspiring to that, or, if you're just seeking good information, and you just happen to even have a conversation about it, like I said, it can be empowering to somebody who's just figuring it out. Now, I
Yeah.
think ultimately people will get into it anyway, or the other way, whichever way, because it's inevitable. You can
Yep.
watch mainstream media and see, like I said, things like these non-fungible tokens becoming more common. They're being used by the rich and the famous, right? It
Yeah.
feels out of reach, perhaps, still, to many people,
Yeah.
right? And however simple it is to do, it's it's out of reach because,
It
the
seems a little
small
intimidating,
voices.
like, to
Yeah, I
people.
think I think people are intimidated. Surely, I definitely do.
So, do you think that the UI aspect is something that we as Web3, founders and builders have not really cracked as of yet?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I was talking about like the UI aspect. So because we talked about how this technology can seem intimidating to people who are perhaps just peering in, they feel that it's a little difficult for them to navigate. So would you have the same opinion, perhaps, that the UI and UX aspect is not something that we as Web3 builders have cracked as of yet?
I see. Well, I think it's quite simple. I think it's the wallets that
Mm.
make it more of a hurdle, right?
Yeah,
But it's not really that difficult when you have search engines and
yeah,
copy and paste. It's not that difficult. It really isn't that difficult. We're all well versed
very
in it.
simple.
I think all of us at this time are well versed in just the web, right? So, and using mobile devices, computers. It's quite simple. At least from the youngest pretty much to the oldest these days, right?
Mm.
So I think there's a bit of a hurdle with that, but also I think it's more than this, more than it starts in the mind, and sometimes you have to, and also you just have to see something, right?
Yeah,
And I think it's the utility that is being explored. It's being presented, and
yeah,
people are now figuring out that there's like, what's the use? Because there, once upon a time, maybe just yesterday, as of this recording, somebody said, I could just screenshot the NFT and I have the NFT, or somebody felt that they could just right click and download an NFT image and
right.
say, boom, I
Yeah,
got it.
yeah,
And it's the utility, the application that is just being conveyed, I suppose, to the audience.
yeah. This is something that I've heard a lot as well, and it's ultimately with this entire NFT boom. I think it does come down to how the utility is being presented to the end user, and there is utility here. Like we talked about asset-backed NFTs and whatnot, and that is where essentially I think we kind of moving. I see a world where you essentially your house would be an NFT or your car would be an NFT, and it'll be a simple transaction that you do, and it'll be quick and not tedious.
I mean, we're living in that world right now, just on a smaller scale, right? Because
Yeah,
people are definitely trading items, purchasing items in the real world, physical items with NFTs as large as homes, right? That's happening
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
So it's just, if you're in the front, you just have to leave some hints, leave some tips. You don't have to pull anybody. You could leave some breadcrumbs as you progress,
right.
and which guides them the right way, ideally.
Yeah, I think that you kind of again summed it up in a very nice manner. Okay, so now moving to perhaps trends in this space. What is your take about on the ape NFTs and the other NFTs that usually like basically artwork NFTs that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around. We talked about intrinsic value, and that is something that usually people have a hard time wrapping their head around. What is your take on that?
I think there's just so much value. It's incredible. I can't look at anything less than that at this point,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
right? Because there's no way for me to prove any type of ownership of a digital item. I mean, there wasn't, perhaps there
Yeah,
is now, right?
yeah,
So it's just an interesting time. Like again, the utility of it is just being explored. It's being explored. It's
yeah,
it's being applied and it's being delivered, and people are slowly, it's trickling down. It's going to happen slowly, slowly, slowly. It's going to take time.
yeah. It'll be like gradually and then all at once, perhaps. That's what I hope.
But hey, just be there.
Yeah, I do think that's where we are heading. Okay, so you've been in this space for some time now. Who are like the thought leaders or influencers that you would say recommend to our listeners if they are just getting into the perhaps the NFT space?
It really depends on how if we're looking at it more for education.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in media, like watching videos to learn stuff, perhaps.
But just like name perhaps the ones that you really think are doing a fab job in getting the education aspect out of the way.
I see. You ask a very personal question. I've got to say, I know, it's an odd thing to say like this, no, but definitely
No,
check
it's not at
out.
all odd. It's not
Yeah,
at all odd.
yeah, no, no, it's yeah, I get your point. No, it touches home very deeply. I'll just put it like that. And yeah,
Yeah.
so but I'll go this way.
Hmm.
Definitely check out some, Andre Cronje. Definitely check out uh, the Fundamental Secrets.
Hmm.
Definitely check out GameStar Exchange. Well, definitely because we're starting our podcast series. We've been, and
Wow.
we've got lots of blogs. People
Hmm.
can read a lot about just the crypto space. Learn. You can of course learn about our platform, but we also have content that's just about things happening in development in the blockchain space and user application of these tools essentially. So that's why I say that, because it's genuine, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you asked a very personal question.
No, it's a good, so yeah, it is definitely 100% very personal, because it'll give us an insight into how you are thinking or you are approaching the space. But I do believe that it's interesting that you said that your blogs and the content that you guys are creating, it's not just about the platform itself, it's about the space on a macro level. And that is very important, because there is so much noise out there, right? It's very easy to get swayed if you're following perhaps somebody who is not giving 100% right information.
Look, the scamming, it's even
Yeah.
the word is terrible. I don't even like
Yep.
uttering it. It's just,
Yeah.
right. It's a terrible word, and it's prevalent. It can look, we've been scammed. It's different when depending on the country you're in, the nation you're in.
Hmm.
You may tap, you may swipe, you may exchange, bills. It just really depends, right? The
Yeah.
more digital things are, it seems that there's a potential, and the more centralized things are as well, as long as that central authority has, good, scrupulous, and uh, they have a good sense for security, right? Then I think it's okay in the sense that you will feel that security when you do, tap your card or swipe your card, insert your card, whichever way. You feel that the interaction there is secure, right? Um, yeah, the whole aspect of security is so, to me, is so important, and it kind of, dare I say, I don't want to say it always goes back to that, but it
Hmm.
really does, because you could win it all and lose it all. you
Yeah.
know you it's like you would, that's the one thing that we didn't really learn much of. We didn't have the ability to even apply any knowledge of it, because we didn't have any private keys, we didn't have any
Yeah.
seed phrase of any sort. You're opening a bank account,
Yeah.
and you might not even be able to see what the teller's entering for you, that agent that's helping you. we
Yeah.
don't- we
You
can't even
don't
see
know.
the screen sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on the angle. It's like, what, this is my account, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, that's what we came up with. So it's just a great opportunity. Again, education, I don't mean to go back to that so much, but it's really, it's a very, dare I say, awesome time to learn something new.
All right. Okay. So, what is next for you on a personal level? So, you talked about your platform, we talked about the trends a little bit, and we touched upon. But what is next for you on a personal level? What do you what do you want to like make next or build next?
In the crypto space, on
Yes.
blockchains,
Yes.
I would say, definitely NFTs, utility
Mm.
driven NFTs for personal creations. That is one thing that really drives me. You know, more content as well, more personal, perhaps videos, things like that.
Mm.
Movie. There's so many aspects, so many elements. It takes time. You're only one person. There's only so much time in the day, right?
Yeah.
But I really want to make sure that GameStar Exchange works, the platform's functioning, and people are running it, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. So that is important to me, to make sure that there's that stability. So, but at the same time, I'm definitely kind of paving the way for myself and other people as well,
Mm.
to have an outlet, to have another option to share your media of any
Wow.
sort, right? So that's
Wow.
important to me. So any of the platforms, including GameStar Exchange, that I make now or in the future, I'm definitely thinking of how I would like to use it,
Right.
So, right. So we'll definitely be doing some NFTs on our platform as well. So definitely people, if you're interested, you know, in collecting NFTs and that have utility, right? That's what we're looking to do. So, that drop will be coming so at some point in time. I don't really know the dates and on that specifically yet,
Mm-hmm.
but again, just that utility aspect. So for me, yeah, anything that incorporates NFTs in utility, I definitely have an interest in some type of token as well. However, I think ultimately it's more of a blockchain than anything that I'm interested in,
Right.
or
Right.
sidechain, something of that nature. Because I suppose for me, I'm just looking at the biggest picture possible, right? In a way.
Yeah. So, I think all of us in the Web3 space are, we are very passionate about blockchains and, the L2 solutions that are coming up. And so it's obviously a very dynamic, exciting space to be. But probably, the way I see it, the way you are going, and the fact that you feel so passionately about giving other people a medium or another option, I think that is a beautiful cause to be associated with, like cause not in a derogatory manner, but cause because you feel so strongly about it. I'm sure that you guys will do wonders in this space with GameStar itself integrated. So really more power to you guys. Now this is something that I kind of ask everybody that comes on the show, that what would be your 2 cents for somebody who is peering in perhaps from the outside, and what would be your suggestions for them to start living on blockchain?
That's interesting. I think
Yeah.
one thing I'd say is probably, in all honesty, disregard mainstream media on the
Mhm.
subject,
Yeah.
right? And I wouldn't go as far as to say do the opposite. I've heard that before. I don't,
Yeah.
that's, I I may have I may have even said that before just to be, to be funny, I suppose. But no, I
No, but
think,
it's the truth, right? Like, the mainstream media is just catching up.
well, they're also going to play with it, right? So,
Yeah.
be
Be
you
careful.
can't give the full story in one time, one go. You have to ask a question, right? You got to keep asking
Yeah.
questions. Is it safe? Is it okay? Is it good? Is it bad? And
Mm.
all the while people are accumulating.
Yeah. So, your 2 cents would be, don't listen to the mainstream media and do the exact opposite of what